Hey, Loretta Calvert here, Legally Quirky. Um, I don't know what happened to one of my videos. Chapter 3 of the book reading disappeared. So we're going to redo it. This is what happens when you use technology. Sometimes things just don't go right. And so we're going to pick up in Say Yes to Yourself by me. And we're in chapter 3. It's called Trust Your Gut. Mr. Future Dateline Story was another online match. He was a good-looking person, athletic and funny. Future Dateline Story also wasted no time. We exchanged numbers to start talking offline. He asked me out and he started making plans. Future Dateline Story was different from the others right away. He wanted to take me for a hike rather than dinner. Now, why my brain instantly went to every episode of Dateline that involved serial killers, I don't know. But I did get that idea and I could not get it out of my head. I picked the trail we would do. I appreciated doing something different than the typical dinner in a movie. However, I was meeting someone I did not know on a trail where he could easily kill me and dump my body in the trees. I debated going through with the date and then decided I would, but I would conceal a knife for protection and I would keep my cell phone with me at all times. I had 2 friends who knew my plans and would check in on me. Off I went one sunny Saturday morning to meet Future Dateline Story, the potential serial killer. I arrived first and sent the girls a text. Maybe he won't show up. He arrived and he looked exactly like his pictures. Future Dateline Story was tall, good looking, built, and he had a huge smile on his face. Didn't seem threatening at all. He's here, wish me luck, I typed to my friends. Future Dateline Story and I did the trail, and he was smart and funny. He seemed to enjoy nature. Although Future Dateline Story was from the area, he claimed to not know the trail or the surrounding neighborhoods. I took photos along the way and posted them, remembering the 2 young girls who had disappeared in one of the Dateline episodes. After the hike, he asked about places to eat lunch. Future Dateline Story followed me to a nearby eatery. He looked over the menu and then started to tell me about everything he put in his body. He watched his diet carefully. I could tell that he took care of himself, except for his hands. I had not noticed it on the hike, but as we were looking over our menu, I realized that his hands were covered in this really weird, almost pitted markings. I filed that away for later. We ordered. Future Dateline Story told me all about the amazing meals he made and said he cooked with fresh items from his garden and that he would really like to cook for me. At that point, it was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon and still light out. Future Dateline Story asked me if I wanted to go for a ride to a local park. Okay, sure. I had been texting the girls on and off, letting them know where I was. And so I had my security plan in place. I rechecked, the knife was still there. I climbed into his truck and off we went. He took me to his favorite park. So you do know the area, I thought to myself. We chatted and shared the fresh air. We watched a person fly his model airplane at the park, and there were dogs and birds to watch also. Future Dateline Story kissed me, and he was a good kisser. He had strong arms. He probably had less than 10% body fat. However, instead of thinking about how lucky I was, I had the thought that he could easily snap my neck. We climbed into his truck. I asked to go back. One last stop before I take you back. It's still early. And he was right. It was still early. But I had started to get that spidey sense that something wasn't right. I texted the girls the names of roads as we drove. We ended up pulling up to the front of his house. He said, I want to show you my garden. And so we went in the back door to the garden area, not the house. Future Dateline Story was proud of his garden, and he had every right to be. The yard was lush green and had all sorts of vegetables, herbs, and wildlife. He asked me if I wanted to go inside. I said, no, thank you. Another time. I really need to get back. You sure you don't want to stay and go inside? I can make us dinner tonight. First, There was no way I wanted a first date to last from 10 o'clock in the morning until dinner time or longer. Second, I didn't know him and I was getting spooked. It started to feel really creepy, and I was wondering what was underneath those flower beds and vegetable garden. Next time, I said with a smile. We got back in the truck. On the ride back, he seemed to be nice, but I was not impressed and really freaked out at this point. In the parking lot next to my car, he kissed me again. He was a good kisser, but as he waved, I caught another good look at the markings on his hands. Were they gardening accidents or defensive wounds from his last kill? You decide. I was going home, and I politely told him I was not interested. Every chapter ends with takeaways. One of the takeaways from that chapter that I discuss is how notice that he kept testing my boundaries. Like, okay, let's do this. Okay, let's do this. And he kept extending the date. My advice to you is if you get a gut feeling, right, and your gut feeling is saying something's not quite right, get the heck out of there. Your personal safety is a priority, and you should always make sure that you're safe before you go on these dates. Unfortunately, we live in a world where nobody is as they seem, and until you really get to know somebody, I would not go into their house. I would continue to meet in public until you feel comfortable with them, and maybe even, and there's a chapter in this book about it, do a background check. I hope you enjoyed that chapter. Chapter 4 is coming soon. Thanks.